Good evening, everyone, and good morning to you, Carrie, and warm welcome to everyone. I can see a lot of familiar names here, but there are also a few who are not known to us. Special thanks to them. I'm sure the topic and the speaker attracts such serious coaches. The topic that we have chosen for today is about mastering ICF coaching competencies or core competencies. This was planned during the ICW. Then we thought this topic and the speaker deserves a less cluttered schedule so that more people can join. Otherwise, we are all tied up with our chapter events. So that's why we chose a convenient slot like this for all the participants, because this is a very important topic that needs a lot more attention as coaching is evolving, especially in this part of the world. So we have a very special speaker today, Carrie. This is my style of introduction. That's her LinkedIn profile. Most of you would know her. We get to meet Magda and other volunteers, coaches from India and elsewhere, but very rarely we get to connect with somebody like Carrie, who holds that precious space of coaching core competencies. And we all are kind of practicing, we all are on the periphery, but if there are people who are holding this very well, it's people like Carrie. I met her, she wouldn't know. I met her when I went through my PCC assessment training in 2019, so I've seen her in action, so I know what I'm speaking. Quick in experience, what is there on the LinkedIn profile. Currently she is vice president, credentials and standards. So there is no better expert to speak about core competencies than Carrie, right? Before that, for almost 3 years, she was first assistant director, then director, credentialing, and the related stuff. So almost what 5 + 3, 8.5 years at ICF. That's a wealth of experience that she brings in. Uh, Grateful to you, Carrie, for taking time on a Thursday morning for you, 9 a.m. And I'm sure as we progress, we'll get into some kind of Q&A. But initially, Carrie is going to take us through a presentation that she's prepared. Some of you have given us questions as part of registration. We have already shared that with Carrie, thanks to Sonia. And finally, Tuba, who is here on the call, who is a representative for ICF in India. Thanks to you for facilitating all this in the background. Over to you, Carrie.
Thank you so much, Subhash, for the warm welcome. It is really a delight and an honor to be with you all today. So thank you so much for the invitation to come and talk about a couple of topics that really fuel my heart, give me energy, which is the ICF Core Competencies as well as credentialing. And I'm honored also to be here with my colleague, Dave Jennings, who is the Vice President of ICF Coaching Education. We'll kind of, Dave and I and his team and the coaching education and the credentials and standards team, we work very, very closely together, including on projects to develop and review core competencies. So just wanted to give him a shout out here as well and his team, because we couldn't do this. No single team could do this work together. Together, it's really important to do that. So I'll pull up my slides and we'll run through this slide deck where I'm going to talk a little bit about the core competencies as well as some of the information around ICF credentials. We'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A as well, but we'll go ahead and get started. So today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the core competencies, but I wanted to start at the beginning, which is how do we even develop core competencies? How do we know that they are truly core competencies for coaching? So we'll talk a little bit about the development process for the core competencies. We'll introduce the core competency model. Many of you are experts in the core competencies, but we'll give an overview of what they are and kind of where they are in the process of their review, the benefits of the competencies, how they serve coaches, coaching education programs, and ultimately clients of coaches. And then we'll talk a little bit about ICF coaching credentials. Again, something that I get very excited about. At the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. If you'd like to ask a question in the chat in the meantime, please feel free to do so, and we'll get to those at the end. So let's start with a competency development process. And it all starts with a process we call job analysis. And some of you have been a part of our job analysis recently and previously, and we're grateful for that. A job analysis is really a structured research initiative that's used to identify the core knowledge domains, skills, abilities, and tasks that are required to perform any type of profession or job safely and competently. Job analysis is used to help identify competencies for quality assurance and consumer protection purposes. And we do that through a number of methodologies, but it also serves, that we'll go through in just a few minutes. But a job analysis and the competencies they identify or design also serve typically as the basis, the foundation of any kind of certification program and any kind of certification exam. Again, we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But I can't overemphasize how important a job analysis is, both to the development of the ICF Core Competencies, as well as to every component of our credentialing process as well. The job analysis helps us to ensure that competencies reflect real world practice. The competencies are informed by subject matter experts through the job analysis study. So it provides valid and reliable data for us to develop and identify competencies, and again, forms that foundation for our certification, as well as for our training development and our accreditation standards as well. Typically, a job analysis, and this is across all professions, but typically a job analysis will have at least 2 key stages of work. A workshop of practitioners to help identify the key knowledge domains, the skills, the abilities, other characteristics, and tasks required to perform that professional practice or that job. And then a survey to validate those tasks and what we call KAOs, or knowledge, abilities, and other characteristics. I'll refer throughout this presentation to KAOs as short. And we do that through both we survey on the frequency of those KAOs and tasks that practitioners use, as well as the importance or criticality of those KAOs and tasks. So something may be really important, for instance, that a coach does, but a coach may only have to do that every once in a while. On the other hand, there may be other tasks or knowledge domains that a coach uses in every single engagement or interaction they have with a client. And so both of those domains are really important in the survey process for us to validate the tasks and knowledge, abilities, and other characteristics, or KAOs. So let's talk a little bit about how we do job analysis at ICF, because we are quite rigorous in our process. I mentioned on the previous slide that typically a job analysis will have 2 key phases of work, a workshop with subject matter experts and a survey. So we go even farther in depth with our job analysis to make sure that it's robust. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is coaching is quite a complex professional practice. So it takes a little bit more rigor to fully understand and verify exactly what it is that coaches need to know or be able to do in order to perform safely. But also, we are conducting job analyses on a global scale. So that's quite different than a job analysis that might be, constrained to a national kind of market, or even a smaller market than that. So it's very important for us to be comprehensive and quite robust in the work that we do. So we collect a lot of data through this process. We conduct interviews with seasoned expert coaches. We carry out surveys. We have a number of workshop panels. We've had 2 workshop panels for our job analysis work just in the last year alone. We also review academic research. So our researchers, both that we partner with at the Human Resources Research Organization, as well as our internal researchers, will conduct academic research and review academic research as it pertains to coaching practice just in the last 5 to 7 years, and that will inform our job analysis as well. So through all of these different phases of research, we collect just tons and tons of data. We analyze all of that data. We verify the data through the survey of the job analysis survey, or many of you may have participated just earlier this year in January and February for our global coaching job analysis survey. We verify that data through that survey process, and then we review even more data to develop and update the competencies. So it's quite robust. And here's another view of this process that we conduct. Again, the literature review, so we're looking at academic research and how coaching is portrayed in academic research and what that research can tell us. We identify definitions for what we are studying, so in this case, coaching. Conduct multiple interviews with expert practitioners, typically those who have been practicing in the field for many years. We develop task and KAO statements through a workshop with subject matter experts, that's credentialed coaches from around the world. We conduct a survey, which we did earlier this year, as I just mentioned. That goes out to the global population of coaching professionals, including both ICF coaches as well as those outside of the ICF community, as we want to get a sense of what coaching practice really looks like, regardless of whether it is ICF coaching or beyond the ICF community. And then we pull together another workshop with subject matter experts. Rekha was just one of our subject matter experts at our most recent workshop, where they reviewed the results of the survey and helped provide input into updates to the core competencies based on all of the data that we've gleaned through the last year of research. And that goes into and informs the ultimate, either the competency model, if it's being developed for the first time, or in this case, updates to our competency model that we're currently undertaking. And then you see this arrow at the top that goes all the way back to the beginning. And that's there for a very important reason. That's because, like just about anything, professions, and coaching in particular, are not stagnant. They are professions are organic. They are living, breathing things that evolve with time. It's dynamic. And so it's really important for certification programs and associations that serve a professional practice like the ICF. We understand how a professional practice may be evolving or changing over time. And so we do a job analysis every 5 to 7 years, and that allows us to see what changes or fluctuations may be happening over time, what new skills are emerging as really important that perhaps 10 years ago weren't quite as important to the practice. And that's really important to make sure that our competencies accurately reflect what coaches need to know and be able to do to practice safely and effectively today, to meet the demands of their clients in today's practice, in today's world. At the bottom of this model, you'll see people, and that's because coaching subject matter experts, people and practitioners like each of you, are absolutely integral to this process. At the ICF, our staff team, we help facilitate this process alongside our research partners at the Human Resources Research Organization. but we are not the experts in coaching practice. You are the experts in coaching practice. And so this process really is about collecting input, insights, expertise, and wisdom from the global community of practitioners. And we include a lot of individuals, a lot of subject matter experts through this work. In 2019, which was the last time we completed a job analysis, we had over 1,300 subject matter experts, credentialed coaches like you, who were involved in this job analysis process around the world. Today, as we are nearing the end of our current job analysis process, we have closer to about 3,000 active participants in our job analysis. That means the competencies will almost serve as this pocket of rich expertise that's cultivated and curated from some of the brightest minds in the coaching world today. That's really powerful to have that many experts who are actively contributing to the collective wisdom of the profession. So thank you to all of you who participated, whether as subject matter experts on a workshop panel like Rekha, or through participation and completion of the survey. It's critically important, and we can't thank you enough. So I won't bore you more with information and insight on research. I get excited about that. Not everybody gets excited about research, but I think it's really exciting. If you do want to know more about the process and why that process, that structured, standardized process is so important, we do have a write-up, a white paper, if you will, on the most recent job analysis and the competency review work from 2019 on our website. I'll provide the link. Subhash, I'll provide the link through Tuba to you so that you can distribute it after the session today. Perfect. And I will mention as well, we are at the very end of our current review of the core competencies through the completion of another job analysis. So please stay tuned, because later this year, we will be communicating and announcing any updates to the core competencies based on our most recent job analysis process. So what do the current ICF core competencies include? This will probably be well known by all of you, but just in case, I've listed here, and I won't go into depth here because you all have studied the core competencies through Regal Unlimited, and you know the competencies backward and forward, I'm sure. But based on our 2019 job analysis, we published 8 core competencies, and that really was kind of a big deal for the coaching profession as well as for ICF, because in 2019 that represented the first time that our core competencies had ever been revised. Our core competencies have been in place since 1998 or so, but they had never been revised. And so we did have some updates to the competencies in 2019. We went from 11 competencies actually down to 8. So we streamlined the competencies. We consolidated a few of the competencies, but we also added one new competency to the model based on the research that we collected from practitioners like you around the world. And that was competency 2, embodies a coaching mindset, which really includes kind of the reflective practice that a coach really needs to be undertaking to stay sharp, to stay ready to support their client. It includes notions around being open and curious around the client's identity, culture, context, those sorts of elements, as well as the coach's own identity, coaching culture, context, and kind of identity as the coach, and how those two things interact. So that was a new element added to the competency model in 2019. I have here kind of color-coded The first two competencies in blue and the remaining competencies in a gold color. And all of the competencies are critically important. There's no one competency that is more important than the other. However, we do look at the competencies in slightly different ways. The first two, what we call the foundation of foundational core competencies, those are almost, one can interpret them as the being of the coach. How does the coach stay ethical and remain true to the ICF code of ethics, but also how do they integrate ethical practice in all of their interactions with their clients? How does the coach maintain that curious coaching mindset over time? How do they prepare for coaching sessions before and after? How do they engage in ongoing professional development and reflective practice throughout their coaching career? These are more about the coach's being, and the remaining competencies establishes and maintains agreements, cultivates trust and safety, maintains presence, listens actively, evokes awareness, and facilitates client growth, can be seen or understood as the doing of coaching. So these competencies are more about what a coach will demonstrate, some of the behaviors the coach will engage, and some of the types of practices that they will demonstrate in interaction with their clients. So these are mainly happening within the coaching sessions themselves. So the being and the doing is often how we view the competencies in this way. All right, let's talk a little bit about why we have core competencies in the first place. Why is it important? Who do the core competencies benefit? And the answer to that question is multiple folks, multiple stakeholders benefit from the competencies. They really are there to serve so many individuals, not just the coach, although individual practitioners benefit tremendously from the competencies. Coaching education programs like Regal Unlimited benefit from the core competencies because they provide some important standardized content for curriculum development. The coaching profession benefits from the core competencies. Ultimately, however, and this is a point that I often really emphasize, competencies ultimately serve coaching clients. Certification and competencies, all that we do are really here to serve the clients of coaching, to ensure that clients, when they are engaging an ICF coach, an ICF credentialed coach, that they know that they are investing their time and financial resources with a competent, safe practitioner. It's a quality assurance. And so these standards really serve to benefit and protect coaching clients so that they're receiving effective services with their coach. We'll talk a little bit about these in the subsequent slides here, but let's go into I won't go into depth, but the benefits to coaching education programs. Competencies really help professionalize coaching education by providing the core content for the education that many of you have received through Regal Unlimited and other programs, right? So when we have core competencies, those become the standard content for ICF accredited education programs to deliver to their students. That allows, and of course, each educational program will also include some of their own unique content components as well to make them nuanced, to make them distinct and meet the unique needs of their students. However, it allows for some standardization across coaching educational programs, that there's a core foundational educational curriculum that's being delivered to those who are studying to become coaches. And that's really important. That promotes consistency, it promotes credibility within the field. It also promotes credibility with coaching clients ultimately. Now let's talk a little bit about the benefits for coach practitioners. And this may be the most obvious source of benefits or target audience for core competencies, because core competencies really do help provide standards for professional practice. It is a roadmap they serve as a roadmap for coaches who are learning to develop skills and knowledge base in coaching by providing benchmarks for skill development, a roadmap for professional growth along one's coaching journey. Certainly, the core competencies emphasize and promote ethical integrity. One thing that you may be aware of and have noticed, but throughout the history of the ICF Core Competencies, ethical practice has always been the very first core competency. And that's not just because we chose to put ethical practice as competency number one. It's actually data-based. When we conduct our studies, when we conduct our job analysis surveys, those knowledge domains and tasks associated with coaching ethics are always rated number one in importance among coach practitioners. So because of that, we always love to see that on the research side. We love to see that when we're reviewing the data, that ethical practice is not just our primary concern as ICF staff, but it's also the primary priority for coach practitioners, as well as demonstrated in the survey results. So that's one of the reasons that ethical practice is the first competency. And certainly the competencies support the code of ethics and ethical practice in coaching. So let's also talk a little bit about the benefits for the profession. One of the things that I think core competencies add so much value to for the profession is by providing a level of standardization and professionalization of any kind of professional practice, in this case, coaching, but it provides a common language for practitioners who are engaged in a similar type of practice and standards. And that enhances the credibility and recognition of the profession throughout the world, especially by those who are not within the practice, right? So those who are clients, those are who are stakeholders, those who are sponsors of coaching. The fact that we have standards of practice in the form of core competencies really adds that legitimacy and credibility for them as well. And it's all based on research. It's all evidence-based, which adds a lot of credibility as well. Now, in my role, as Subhash mentioned, I serve with the Credentials and Standards team at the ICF. So my primary focus is on our ICF credentials, ACC, PCC, and MCC, and of course, our new advanced certification in team coaching. And a lot of our focus is on exams. So the competencies also support the development, design, and delivery of our exams. It provides what we call the blueprint for our exam content. So every single test question that's on one of our exams is linked directly to a competency and subcompetency within our competency model. That allows us to ensure that our exam content is valid, meaning that it is testing what coaches actually need to know or be able to do to practice safely and effectively, and provide that quality assurance for their clients. So it also has a great value to me and my colleagues who are involved in the test development process as well. And it also ensures, because the competencies are developed through the insights, wisdom, and expertise of so many subject matter experts around the world, it also helps us really say and mean that our exams are developed by coaches for coaches. And that doesn't stop with the job analysis process, although that's a really critical component of it. We additionally use subject matter experts, credentialed coaches at every phase of the exam development process as well. So just like you saw the job analysis process with subject matter experts involved in each stage, we also use the same approach in developing our exams, and our exam content, of course, is based on the core competencies as the blueprint for the exam. So we continue that frame of using coaches to develop that test so that we can ensure that the exam really reflects accurately the content, the knowledge, the skills, the abilities, and the tasks that coach practitioners need to know. All right, let's shift a little bit of our conversation to coach credentials. Since we touched on the exam, that's a natural segue into our credentials. I'm going to stop my share for just a moment. I'd love to see just a show of hands. How many here in the room are active credential holders today? How many of you hold an ICF credential right now? Great. Excellent. Okay, I see a number of hands. Any who are, thank you so much. Any who are actively pursuing a new credential, either a brand new credential for the first time or a higher level credential. Okay, see some hands there too. Great. Excellent. Okay. Well, I'm going to go through some information and then we'll have plenty of time at the end as well for Q&A if you have some questions about that. But I get really excited about talking about credentials. So I'm excited to go into this next section here. And some of this will already be known for many of you who've already gone through the credentialing process. But of course, our credentialing process too changes, just like the competencies change with time. Our credentialing process evolves over time. So I'll be happy to share some of the latest information about where we are with credentialing. So what is the value of an ICF credential? Maybe I should just unmute all of you and who are already credentialed, and you can share what the value is for each of you. But really, it's important for the advancement of the coaching profession that we continue to show our commitment to the highest levels of training, competence, and ethics. Talked a lot about that already, just in terms of the core competencies and their benefits. But what I would mention here that we haven't talked about already is that, as you all well know, coaching is not a formally or centrally regulated profession from a legal standpoint. Anyone can call themselves a coach. The ICF credential provides coaches with a way to distinguish themselves as a coaching professional who is submitted to really rigorous training and coursework through organizations and programs like Regal Unlimited, who have submitted themselves to hours of coaching experience, who have been working with clients over a number of hours, depending on their credential level, who've been working with mentor coaches to develop and refine their skills over time, and of course, who have submitted to sitting for a high-stakes standardized exam, everyone's favorite component of the credentialing process, I'm sure. But that is really important to show the credibility and to independently validate oneself as a competent, knowledgeable, experienced coach that's well-equipped to provide safe, effective practice for their clients. It also demonstrates, too, a commitment to maintaining that competence over time through professional development. And we do that because our credentials have a 3-year cycle, and every 3 years, credential holders have to engage in at least 40 hours of professional development to maintain that competence over time, to maintain their knowledge, to upskill their knowledge and skills over time, and can continue to develop as a coaching professional over their journey. ICF has been delivering individual coach credentials since 1998. So we've been doing this for quite some number of years now, almost 30 years, to provide an important quality assurance for clients and to provide transparency in the marketplace. But what I would note is that I think it's now more important than ever before that coaches have credentials. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next few slides. For one, we have seen unprecedented growth in coaching in recent years. According to the ICF Global Coaching Study, and I think the latest data is from 2022, The number of professional coaches grew by 54% between 2019 and 2022 alone. And it's more than doubled since 2011. So that's huge growth in a pretty short period of time. Likewise, the growth in annual estimated revenue from the coaching industry also reflects this unprecedented growth in the industry. In 2019, for instance, there was an estimated 2.85 billion US dollars generated annually from coaching. By 2022, that number had increased by more than 60% to more than 4.5 billion US dollars. That's tremendous growth. And not surprisingly, there's also been a lot of growth in consumer awareness of coaching during the same time frame. Much of what is fueling the growth in coaching itself. Nearly 20%, we saw nearly a 20% increase in consumer awareness of coaching and the International Coaching Federation between 2010 and 2021. And that's based on research that we conducted in the ICF Global Consumer Awareness Study published in 2022. So among respondents who participated in this study in 2021 who are aware of coaching and would consider a coaching relationship, nearly 80% indicated that a professional certification or credential was either important or very important to them, that it would be important to their decision-making process. And respondents whose coach held a certification or credential were more likely to recommend coaching to colleagues, friends, and family. So that relationship correlation with credentials is really important to clients. That's really in good news, excellent news actually, for the coaching profession. The power of coaching to transform lives is seen and recognized more than it ever has been before. When I started with ICF 8.5 years ago, as Subhash mentioned, coaching was still at that point in time, there were still a lot of people who, when I mentioned I was going to the International Coaching Federation, they didn't know what I was talking about. They didn't understand what professional coaching was. And if they did, many saw it as almost like, oh, if someone gets coaching, it's because they've done a poor job in their work. And so they've been penalized and have to go to coaching. That's no longer the case, right? Now coaching is recognized. It's almost a badge of honor for many in companies and organizations to be able to engage with a coach. So the public perception around coaching has really broadened and it's expanded and it's improved. It's a much more positive view of what coaching is, much more realistic view of what coaching is and how it can transform individual lives as well as the performance of teams and organizations, et cetera. But with this greater level awareness around coaching, with this greater demand for coaching by clients and consumers, it also makes the industry much more appealing to individuals who want to benefit from that demand without going through the rigorous, proper training and experience needed to call themselves a qualified coach. We've seen it play out in news articles, in the media, in so many cases, individuals who call themselves a coach without any of the training that we consider absolutely imperative to engage in the professional practice, and who, quite honestly, take advantage of their clients and use their money without providing a quality service, and in some cases, causing harm. So it's much more frequent and common to see articles about this in the news media, which presents really a risk to the industry and the profession. So with this, I think it's so important that individuals who want to go into coaching as a professional practice are engaging in quality educational programs like Regal Unlimited and other ICF accredited programs, and ultimately earn ICF credentials to distinguish themselves in the marketplace as someone who is credible and knowledgeable and skilled and equipped to provide really high quality coaching services, but also to help the credibility and the legitimacy of the profession itself. So let's talk a little bit about the value of credentials. We have three real priorities with our credentials. Let's see here. We offer credentials that, one, recognize the professional achievements of professions in the practice who have engaged in rigorous training. We want to recognize and acknowledge professionals who have gone that extra level and validated their knowledge and expertise in coaching and their skills in coaching. We hope to support and promote ongoing professional development with our credential holders. Again, the purpose of the credential renewal or recertification process and the ongoing professional development and learning that's required for that. And we want to demonstrate quality, credibility, and value to coaching clients, really to serve as a quality assurance for coaching clients so that they know when they are engaging an ICF credentialed coach, they're making a wise investment for themselves and for their future. And we know that this is important. Again, according to that Global Consumer Awareness Study, clients of coaches, for clients of coaches, the ICF credential really demonstrates not just the qualifications and commitment to professional and ethical practice on the part of the coach, but it really demonstrates the integrity and professionalism of coaching in general. Clients who have engaged in coaching indicate that working with a credentialed coach is important or very important, 85% of them. And among those who are considering a coaching relationship, it's nearly 8 in 10 indicate that it would be important or very important for their coach to hold a credential. And there's higher levels of satisfaction as well among clients who engage in coaching with a credentialed coach. Among clients who worked with a credentialed coach, more than half indicated that they were very satisfied with the relationship compared to approximately 1 in 4 clients who worked with a non-credentialed coach. So you really see that value impact among credential holders. And clients who worked with a credential holder were also more likely to recommend coaching to their colleagues, friends, and family. All right, so let's just do a top line. Why is this so important? We've already talked about a number of these elements in the previous slides, but coaching's growing. We know that. We have heard now that clients really value education, they value credentials, they value those marks that show that they're working with a qualified, knowledgeable, experienced coach. It also pays to be credentialed. We through our global coaching study, we know that coaches who earn a credential earn more on average than their non-credentialed peers. So there's, some financial incentive for individuals to earn that credential. And more coaches are becoming highly trained. 85% of coaches said that they currently hold a credential or certification from a professional coaching organization. That's up from 2019. So more and more coaches are seeking those credentials to distinguish themselves in the marketplace. So let's talk about the credentials that ICF offers. And we do offer credentials that support coaches wherever they might be in their coaching journey, from just starting out to highly experienced coaches mid and advanced in their careers. The first credential that we offer is the Associate Certified Coach credential. It's what we call for the practice coach. It's for someone who is just entering the field of coaching or who may provide coaching part-time in addition to their regular. We require 60 hours of education, 100 hours of experience in coaching, and 10 hours of mentor coaching, along with sitting an exam. The next certification that we offer is the Professional Certified Coach credential for the experienced coach. That's for someone who is more mid-career. It requires 125 hours of education, 500 hours of experience with a client, and 10 hours of mentor coaching, along with sitting a standardized exam. And then the Master Certified Coach is for that expert coach who has been coaching typically years, up to 10 years before they qualify for this credential, with 200 hours of education, 2,500 hours of client coaching experience, and 10 hours of mentor coaching. And just 2 years ago, we also launched for the first time ever our first certification in a specialized discipline of practice, the advanced certification in team coaching, which is also very, very exciting. I know we have a couple of ACT holders on this call as well. So what are the benefits for those who earn a credential? There's so many, and we've talked about a number of those on the previous slide. So I won't go into this slide. I know I'm keeping an eye on time, and I want to make sure that we have time for questions. But I will provide these slides so that you have them. But this is what we hear from credential holders on why it matters to them earning an ICF credential, whether it's an ACC, PCC, or an MCC. And a few additional statistics on the value that credentials offer both to candidates who earn them as well as to their clients. But more and more and more, we hear from coaches who are going through the credentialing process that the process itself of preparing for the credential, for studying both through their educational program, but also studying in preparation for the exam, of working with their mentor coach to sharpen their coaching skills, that the preparation itself has made them a better coach. And that is worth something. That is valuable. And we hear that more and more from our candidates, which is exciting. And we certainly have more and more coach credential holders around the world. We have over 58,000 credential holders. We anticipate we'll be hitting another big milestone at 60,000 quite soon. That includes over 29,000 ACCs, almost 26,000 PCCs, over 2,500 MCCs. And as of yesterday, we had 799 ACTC holders worldwide. I bet today we've overcome that 800 benchmark and are beyond that now. And we have a growing community of credential holders. It's been exciting to see the growth of credentialed coaches within India itself. In India, there are over 2,000 active credentials, almost 1,000 ACCs, almost 1,000 PCCs, more than 100 MCCs, and 39 ACTCs. So it's very, very exciting to see the growth and to see the growing recognition of the value that credentials can hold. I won't go into this slide here, but there is a link here. If you want to hear from active credential holders why the process was valuable to them, you can hear from many credential holders across the globe through video testimonials at this link here. So I encourage you to do that. And now we'll stop for Q&A. And I see that there is at least one hand raised, Naval.
Yeah, good evening, Carrie. Hi.
Hello.
So I have been a credentialed coach from Regal and being fortunate enough to be trained by Subhash as well as Rekha. So a big round of gratitude for them. Whatever we are today in the coaching arena, it's the credit goes to both of them as well as the panel who had helped us with the codes. So Carrie, while you were discussing, I was going through the talk very keenly. I have four parts to the question over here. So first, as you mentioned across, that ICF has not got any legal standing in terms of coaching as a word, which you very correctly stated has been used by everybody and anybody in the market. So we have completed 30 years now. So wanted to ask about one thing: what is ICF doing going forward to it, so that some kind of standing is there in the market? Because that brings to me to second question over here, which talks about when we are talking about being credentialed, the rigor is there, and the efforts that every coach puts in before getting a credential. The typically in Indian market, when as you correctly stated, 1,000 ACCs, 1,000 PCCs are there. So the rate in the market that is pegged at across, it moves around $11 to $50. I mean, being an ICF credentialed coach. So what is ICF doing in terms of that part as well? Which comes to the third part. So when we are credentialing, the fees, the whosoever are the members of the ICF Global, and those who do not opt to renew. So I am also a membership director for ICF Mumbai chapter. So whereupon a lot of people have come up across that there is no point us renewing or subscribing for ICF Global. So what is the benefit that ICF Global is providing against $270 a year? It is charging and it is increasing every year. And that brings to the fourth part, to the chapter MC members for any chapter across the globe. The rates remain same. I mean, although they are canvassing for the ICF Global memberships across their vicinity, and on their renewals also, they are not given any kind of discounts or leeways to renew, or neither they are given any kind of comforts across for this. So these are the four parameters which I wanted to shed light on. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you for your great questions. And help. I think I've got them all in my head, but help keep me honest here if I skip any. So Naval, you first asked about regulation. You know, for many, many years, ICF, the membership body, the leadership has determined to stay self-regulating. So we do that through our voluntary certification program. This conversation around regulation does come up every so often. And certainly we've been having some internal discussions with our board leaders around regulation in the past couple of years as well. So we continue to have those, revisit that conversation regularly. As you can imagine, a regulatory framework within any jurisdiction is quite complex. And when you place that on the global scale, it gets even more complex to be able to manage kind of the regulatory conversation and positioning. But we are looking at that question, revisiting it with our board leaders regularly to see when, you know, is it still serving the community to be self-regulating as an association through our standards, through our certifications, and through our public awareness campaigns, and we'll continue to do that. You asked about membership, some of the benefits of membership and how those dollars, those membership dollars are supported. You know, one thing that I'm really thankful for through the membership, and I will mention membership and certification, or membership and credentialing, are two separate products, two separate services. It is not required to be a member to earn an ICF credential. We think it's a great idea. We encourage that, of course, but it is not required to be a member in order to earn a credential, because earning a credential is purely about competence. It's purely about knowledge and ability. It's not about membership in the organization itself. So we keep those separately very intentionally. That said, for those who are pursuing an ICF credential, members do receive a discounted rate for their credential, as well as for lots of other products across the portfolio of ICF services, events, training courses, access to communities of practice, access to that global network of coaching professionals, which in my view really supports the professional development and journey of coaches. And once someone earns a credential, again, there is the requirement for 40 hours of continuing education every 3 years. And that membership really opens doors to all kinds of educational opportunities for professional development through our communities of practice, through courses, and through discounted events and activities, conferences, and that sort of thing. So there are some great benefits as part of that membership. As well as through chapter networks. So you mentioned that you are with the chapter, and those chapter activities really help provide guidance, structure, and support for individual coach practitioners along their professional journey. Remind me the other question that you asked, because my brain has let it slip. Apologies.
Okay. So thank you so much, Carrie, for the couple of answers you have already shared across, which we have we've already heard. I mean, that's the piece that looks across. The third question was primarily when the board of the management committee of the chapters, they are not getting any kind of leeway or discount while they are canvassing for the global ICF global as a extended family, as an extended arm of ICF global. So that's something which must be looked upon uh, primarily, and that's the voice that has come across from a lot of places. Even we have spoken up with PAC, who is heading the Asia Pacific region. So the talks going on, it's like it's for perpetually the talks going on, but actions on the ground seems very limited. And the fourth was being that when we talk of as we cannot get the word coaching patented or something which can be used. So similarly, when we talk of the enhancement in the revenue for the coaches vis-a-vis the investment cost that they make, as you very correctly stated, that credentialing doesn't require to be ICF global member. But if a person is not an ICF global member, he has to pay a very hefty sum to get credentialed. It's not like that it's very cheap. So that's one part. And vis-a-vis the cost that they get, as I mentioned, India, there are a lot of organizations which are talking of $10 to $50 for 2 hours or 90 minutes sessions that is being offered in the market. So any rate standardization, these two things can come across from ICF Global as a standard process, like you have put for global membership. This is there they have not kept it democratic. There it's a standalone process. They have not even asked before raising the prices. It's straight away raised. So why don't these things get democratized?
Thank you, Naval. Thank you for those additional kind of thoughts and comments and questions. I can certainly take those back as they relate to the chapter to my colleague and find some more information out for you. I'm not able to answer the chapter related questions directly, but also appreciate your insights on the need to help standardize rates. As a voluntary association, we're not able to enforce specific rates, but one thing that we do engage in and are increasingly engaging in is education of consumers, both organizations and individual clients of coaches, on the value of working with a credentialed coach, which helps to promote the services of credentialed coaches and ICF members, of course, and fair rates with those as well. So thank you for those thoughts and comments. Subhash, do we want to go to some questions in the chat?
Yes. Which competency gets lowest score in the exam? Quick one. It can be a short answer, and we go to the next one.
Yeah. There are no real competencies that stand out, at least in most recent statistics I've looked at on the exam, as being the most difficult or the highest rate of not meeting the passing standard. They're typically kind of across the board, so no specific competency stands out.
Sure. Ramesh question, how coaching can be more based on evidence, right? ROI based, evidence based coaching. What else can we do additionally from ICF?
Can you say that again? I'm sorry, I didn't catch the full question.
How do we bring in evidence based coaching into practice?
Well, by integrating the competencies into practice, you are bringing evidence-based coaching into practice. These competencies, as I mentioned, are based on data collected from the field, evidence collected from the field. And so they are representative of evidence-based coaching. And certainly, we always encourage coaches to continue to keep up with academic research that shows effective practice, that researches, that studies effective practices in coaching as well. But certainly, the competencies are designed to demonstrate, represent evidence-based coaching in a specific framework, which we think adds a lot of value.
So the next question from Rekha, any plan to bring in different renewal methodologies for ACC, PCC, MCC, or are you going to stay standardized 40 CCUs? Any thought on that, renewal?
Can you say, I'm sorry, can you say that one more time? I'm having a hard time hearing.
So 40 CCU for renewal is standardized now. Any differentiator being planned?
Yeah. Well, the ICF Credentials and Standards Board and our Exam and Scheme Committee review the requirements for both initial credentialing as well as renewal on a routine basis. So they will constantly be reviewing the requirements for renewal at every level of credential. As well as the requirements. Typically, that's done at the end of the job analysis. So in the next year, there will be a round of review to say, are these requirements, are these eligibility requirements still effective and accurate and relevant to prepare a coach to practice at this level? So.
Okay, so that brings a burning question in me. I'll take the chance, Carrie. I know this might be controversial, right? For example, I've heard mentors speaking about cracking the code of the competency framework and helping coaches get their ACC, PCC, MCC, quote unquote, right? And for me, that goes against the being of coaching, the mastery of coaching, especially at PCC, MCC. I can understand at an ACC. But is there anything that you're going to look at that, while giving credential beyond the framework that is existing now?
Yeah, that's a great question, great point. So one of the things I will mention that I think we will be seeing more and more focus on in the coming years, as you mentioned, kind of mentor coaches cracking the code on the competencies to support their clients. As you may well know, last year we completed job analyses on both mentor coaching and coaching supervision, which resulted in the publication of competencies in mentor coaching and coaching supervision. Again, that was research that we undertook in partnership with ICF Coaching Education and our academic research teams, as well as with external psychometricians who helped us with that. With that, we will be seeing, I think, more activities and standards and services around mentor coaching to help define what mentor coaching practice is and what it should look like to be effective and meaningful and really supportive of the client. So I think you'll be seeing more and more focus on that in the months and year to come, as well as for coaching supervision as well. Of course, the example was about mentor coaching. But we will be working to take those competencies and now put them in practice to better support and really standardize, add greater consistency in the understanding of what mentor coaching really is, what it's supposed to be, and then how it plays out in real world practice.
Sure. Satyajit, your question has been answered. Naval's question, Priya's question. What specific shifts in coaching demonstration are expected from PCC to MCC? Now, Priya is on her MCC, so I can understand.
Yeah.
How is the credentialing process designed? And it's a fantastic question. It is
a great question.
The question that I asked. Yeah.
So one of the things that I'll mention is we have what we call the minimum skills requirements that outline how the competencies are demonstrated at each level of credential, right? So what does ACC level coaching look like as it pertains to the ICF Core Competencies? What does PCC level coaching look like as it pertains to the ICF Core Competencies? Of course, that's framed by the PCC markers. The ACC and the MCC also have a slightly different tool, but it's essentially behavioral statements that describe behaviors at those levels of coaching. So that is that can be a helpful guide for anyone who is pursuing the MCC to look at those behaviors that are outlined in the minimum skills requirements for each competency, how each competency should be demonstrated, and really how assessors will assess the candidate based on those behaviors. But what I will say in general, we see, at the ACC level, it's about learning the techniques. So there's a lot of focus and intentionality about learning the techniques of coaching. And sometimes that can come across as, it may not be particularly fluid. There's a lot of thought as one is coaching. And so it may sound sometimes a little bit more formulaic as a style or an approach, but it says about kind of understanding and integrating the technique. At the PCC level, generally speaking, we see that technique has been integrated and there's more of a focus on partnering with the client. So there's a stronger rapport, and that goes across all of the competencies really, but a stronger rapport and partnership with that client. At the MCC level, how we describe it is that those techniques are there, they're embedded, but the coach is really focused solely on the client, that it becomes almost organic, an interaction that is organic with the client, that is solely focused on the client. And there's more artistry, there's more creativity, and sometimes there is a setting aside of the techniques in order to really best serve the client in the moment. And so there's that evolution of practice that happens across those three levels that we typically see in the assessment process. I hope that's helpful, and best wishes to you on your journey.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you. Yeah, it helps.
Another quick one from Rekha. You have PCC markers. Any plan for ACC markers or MCC markers?
Well, we kind of do have those. They're just called something slightly different. We use a slightly different assessment tool, which are called behaviorally anchored rating scales for the ACC and the MCC level. So the behavioral statements are essentially the same as the markers. They're just behavioral descriptions for both of those levels. And those are actually included in the minimum skills requirements document. They're embedded in that document. But there are specific behaviors that we use in the assessment process to use as criteria for ACC and MCC candidates as well. Essentially markers for those two levels.
Sure. Good question from Piyush. Any plan to include coaching supervision as a minimum requirement for any credential?
That's a great question. Yeah, and again, that goes back to similar to Rekha's question earlier around credential renewal requirements. Our board, specifically at the end of a job analysis, will review the requirements for credentials and determine if any changes are appropriate or needed at that time based on the data, the evidence that we've collected through the job analysis process. So that review, that could always change in the future. Right now, it's not currently required for a credential. It is accepted as professional development for credential renewal, but coaching supervision is not currently required for the ACC, PCC, or MCC credential. For those who are pursuing the advanced certification in team coaching, of course it is. Coaching supervision is a requirement there.
Sure. Ramesh, you can put the question on the chat. We are top of the time. Just one common question. These are the list of questions that came during registration, Carrie and Dave. So everyone is curious what is coming now as part of the new change. I'm sure you may not be in a position to share, but anything that you can share at all about the upcoming changes. Like, mindset was the big one.
Oh, sure. I can't share specifics at this point, although I can say that there will be communications and announcements about any updates to the core competencies this year in the next few months. But what I will say is, unlike in 2019, where we had pretty transformational change in the core competencies, we do not anticipate that level of change this time around. We will see some refinements, most likely, based on the research. We've identified a few themes where we see opportunities for refinements of the core competencies, either revision of existing sub-competencies, or perhaps one or two new sub-competencies, but we don't anticipate, based on the research and based on the input from SMEs, we don't anticipate major change like we saw in 2019. And for everyone I've talked to, that's a welcomed news. So it's refreshing for us as well.
Sure. I mean, how much more time we have? We are already 11 minutes past the deadline. As somebody sitting at ICF Global and looking at a pan-global evolution of coaching, what worries you, Carrie?
What worries me? I do worry. I think that our credentials are really important. And like I said earlier, I think our credentials are probably more important now than they ever were before because of the success of coaching. Because that coaching is now well embraced and understood for the power for transformation that it can offer to individuals, to teams, to organizations. I do worry about the same thing that many of you report worrying about in the global coaching study time and time again, which is those who call themselves a coach, who are not knowledgeable, not well equipped, and can actually do harm not only to their individual clients, but to the coaching profession, to undermine the professionalism of the coaching profession. That's a worry for me, are those individuals who are kind of the bad apples, the bad actors within the industry, who call themselves a coach when they're not qualified.
Dave, anything you want to add? Love to hear you. Any perspective on anything that Carrie has covered, and anything you want to add?
Thank you. It's very nice to see you. Thank you for letting me participate and observe. It's an honor to be here. And thank you for all your work promoting these credentials and the profession as a whole.
Thank you, Dave. Ramesh, do you still have that thing? We can take the last question. It is a very valuable question. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Subhash. Yeah, my question is still valid. I'll keep it. Part of it has been already answered by Carrie. That when I say evidence-based coaching, for example, in the medical profession, the patient gets cured. There is evidence of that the patient is experiencing. In our profession, it's a little more difficult. While we may bring our competencies to the coaching session or to the whole engagement, what's the evidence that the client has experienced the benefit? So I'm pointing towards research, published research, because we can all go and claim so many things, but validated research, there's nothing like validated research to when we present it to a potential new client. That's what I had in mind.
Gotcha. That's a great question, Ramesh. Thank you so much. And thanks for clarifying. I can tell you it's not yet published, but our research team has actually been doing some research on outcome-based coaching outcomes. And they're seeing some really positive results from that. So too early for me to say much more, but I think there will be some research coming out either through ICF as a white paper or some other means in the coming months that kind of speak to the exact question. And it has been a real challenge for coaching in particular to do that type of research because it's so complex, right? Measurement of coaching outcomes is so complex and there's so many factors. So it's kind of difficult to do. But we've been diving into some and hopefully more to come on that as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
exciting.
Thank you, Carrie. Final word. Big thanks to both of you for joining. Thanks, Tuba, for arranging this. When another important point I wanted to make is you would have seen our promos. They did not carry the name of Carrie initially and later Dave. No, they wanted it as an ICF global leader. No, they placed ICF ahead of themselves, though they all are accomplished professionals. Very valuable lesson for us. I always maintain, Carrie, that coaching is much bigger than us as individual coaches. Right? That's also a message that I take it from this whole thing. Big thanks to you for all the sharing. We hope to bring you back and kind of have a follow-up session on deeper questions that are going.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.